Greetings, traveller through time. I offer you now the gentle breeze that blows over the village of Ambrosia, a small settlement on the edge of the grey whisper forest, somewhere in the 10th century, where the dusk settles like a dark woolen cloak over thatched roofs and earthen walls. I'm nothing more than an old historian, ready to whisper forgotten tales. If sleep arrives, I'll be pleased. But tell me, from what corner of the world did you reach me? And while you're here, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel. The scents of hearth smoke and damp soil blend in the cool air, creating a comforting sense of isolation, while the last rays of the sun, washed in melancholy orange and violet, withdraw, leaving behind the promise of stars. This is a place where time isn't in a hurry, and where the stories whispered inside taverns carry the weight of ancient secrets, inviting the soul to slow down and simply listen. Here, in this quiet corner of the Middle Ages, your spirit will find a safe harbour, far from the rush of the centuries yet to come, and from the endless noise that fills your own era. Feel the fresh night air brushing against your skin, carrying the scent of resin and fallen leaves, a clean fragrance that clears the mind and softens restless thoughts. The village sounds fade, turning from a lively buzz into a slow, steady murmur of simple life. The distant crackle of firewood, the final bleat of a sheep being brought to its pen, and the solemn toll of the church bell marking the Angelus. Let that rhythm seep into you, slowing your breath until it matches the calm of this scene, letting your curiosity about what comes next be gentle and comforting, never anxious or rushed. Ambrosia's quiet is a delicate illusion, for there's always the sound of flowing water from the silver stream that winds lazily around the village, a constant melodic whisper that lulls the villagers to sleep and serves as a natural measure of time. It reminds us how gently the hours pass, and how the natural world endures while human lives flicker and fade. The temperature drops, and you can almost feel the cold of the ancient stones in the foundations of the sturdiest buildings, the communal barn and the small chapel dedicated to St. Audran. Immersing yourself in this place is like wearing a second skin, a layer of historical calm that shields you from the outer world, inviting you to simply observe, without haste, without judgment. Think just for a moment about daily life in this village, peasants returning home after long hours in the fields, serfs who, though bound to the land, found purpose in community and in the small joys of harvest. Life was cyclical, ruled by the sun and seasons, creating a rhythm entirely different from ours, yet one that offered a deeper connection with the world around them. Without artificial light, people rested earlier, and nights were devoted to sleep, prayer, or the sharing of stories beside a flickering fire, strengthening bonds in a natural and meaningful way. Let the sweet smell of turned earth, mixed with the pungent scent of manure, tell the story of fertility and survival, a rustic fragrance that is the anthem of rural medieval life. The wind stirs, making dried leaves sound like pages of parchment turning, a quiet invitation to listen closely. Medieval life is often imagined as bleak, but it was full of vibrant colors, especially in textiles dyed with natural pigments. The bright blue of woad, the yellow of saffron, tiny sparks of color against the deep browns of wood and soil. Imagine those colors hanging on lines, or painted on chapel walls, small bursts of beauty cutting through monotony. The sight of the narrow dirt road fading into darkness toward the forest brings both mystery and the vastness of the unknown world beyond. It's a thin line between the familiar and the wild, a silent invitation to adventure, not of the body, but of the mind. The silver stream's soft voice becomes clearer, almost like a lullaby, hypnotic in its repetition. and the thought of warm fires and heavy wool blankets offers a physical comfort that pairs with the quiet of the heart. Ambrosia is governed from afar by a feudal lord named Baron Venceslau, whose small stronghold rises faintly on a hill, half hidden by the forming mist. He represents law and authority, but the village's true life is guided by neighborly customs and unwritten rules, kept alive through tradition and memory. This balance between formal power and local self-governance is one of the Middle Ages' quiet beauties. Think of the smell of fresh bread baked in the communal oven, a scent that united people far more than any decree. As darkness deepens, the chapel of St. Audran stands firm against the night sky, a small tower serving as a beacon of faith and routine. One can almost imagine a soft prayer murmured from within, matching the slow heartbeat of village life. Here, stories of saints blend easily with tales of forest spirits and fairies, the sacred and the mythical living side by side. Soon the moon will rise behind the hill, bathing everything in soft silver light, giving this moment an ethereal glow. The dirt beneath your imagined feet has felt countless footsteps, peasants, wandering sellers, and the occasional solitary traveler. Every pebble carries the weight of a simple, resilient past. The touch of dew settling on leaves and rooftops brings a cool dampness, a reminder of nature's constant presence. That slight chill on your forehead asks you to close your eyes and feel, turning imagination into sensation. And at this balance between the fading sounds of day and the deep hush of night, we find the figure who will guide our story, a young weaver named Ilara. The soft rhythm of her loom, which worked long after sundown, has just fallen silent, leaving behind a fading echo of her diligence and skill. She lives in a modest home near the silver stream, and the scent of linen and natural dyes clings to her doorway, a fragrance of simple labor and quiet beauty. She's 20 years old, and her work is vital. The cloth she produces is the village's most valued trade at the nearby fair. The contrast between the stillness of the village and the steady, focused work of Ilara is the invisible thread stitching this story together. Her window, the only one still glowing with a faint, steady light, is a small beacon in the darkness, a final, watchful flame. From within, one can imagine the warmth of a fading fire and the lingering energy of work well done. Picture that small, amber glow and see in your mind the young woman behind it, the silent keeper of patterns and threads. The forest of grey whisper begins to stir. Branches crack softly, and a distant owl calls out, not as a warning, but as a reminder that the natural world never stops moving. The village is safe, but the world beyond is vast and wild, a gentle duality between comfort and the unknown. It's reassuring to know both exist. Ilara carries the wisdom of her craft, skills passed down through generations. Her name, which recalls light, reflects her quiet role in creating beauty and livelihood. Think of the feel of linen threads passing through her fingers, the soft wool waiting to be woven, and how the repetition of each movement becomes a kind of meditation. In many ways, medieval labor was prayer, slow, rhythmic, grounding, full of meaning. The village is now almost silent, except for the steady whisper of the stream, a natural lullaby guiding the mind toward rest. The scent of cooling ashes and burned wood lingers, an aroma of closure and well-earned stillness. The cold of the night deepens, making the imagined warmth of wool blankets even more comforting. It's the kind of chill that invites the body to curl up and surrender to peace. And one wonders, why does Ilara weave so late when everyone else sleeps? In the Middle Ages, the vertical heddle loom was common, simple, portable, and suited for home use. It's the tool she has mastered. The image of her focused hands, lit only by a small oil lamp, reminds us how quiet strength is often found in simple work. Her little window glows like a fragile star in a sea of black, a symbol of persistence in uncertain times. It's small, yet unwavering. Feel the heavy stillness of the night, a silence so deep that only the calmest thoughts can survive within it. The sound of the stream transforms from song to heartbeat, the soft pulse of Ambrosia itself. Picture her alone, surrounded by rolls of linen and colored yarn, the saffron yellow, the deep red from madder root, the soft blue from woad. These dyes fill her home with faint, earthy perfume, adding richness to the dark. Her house, with its tiny amber light, is the final image we hold before sinking deeper into the story. It's an invitation to observe quietly, to stay close. Let yourself be drawn to that gentle light, the last flame awake before midnight, soft, steady, comforting. It doesn't demand attention. It simply welcomes you. Imagine the feel of thick woolen fabric against your skin, the warmth that keeps the night at bay. Let your thoughts dissolve into the murmur of the silver stream and the scent of damp earth. Elara is our silent guide to the beauty of persistence and creation. Her work connects her to the wider world, thread by thread, and her slow, steady breathing, soft and calm, is the sound of life at its purest rhythm. With that promise of beauty and serenity, the first part of our journey comes to a close, a gentle invitation to rest and dream. As you drift towards sleep, remember the quiet strength of a medieval village under starlight and the warm glow of a young weaver's home. The cold night air feels like a soft embrace, and the sounds of nocturnal life become a lullaby. May the image of Ambrosia and the silver stream bring you the peace you need to float toward rest. This is the threshold of our story, a doorway into calm. The smell of wood smoke and night dew blend into a fragrance of earth and peace, the unmistakable scent of the 10th century at night, the final sensory invitation before we pause. The darkness of midnight is still on its way, but Elara's lamp gives enough light to guide us gently into rest and toward the next part of our tale. Close your eyes, feel the soft coolness of the air. Let the slow rhythm of Ambrosia become your rhythm too, a heartbeat of quiet that prepares the mind for deep sleep. It's in the silent waiting of the night that the most beautiful stories are born, and it's here that we make our first pause for rest and contemplation. Tradução para inglês americano. The smell of freshly cut wood, what Elara uses to reinforce her loom, briefly overtakes the scent of earth, a fragrance of effort and craft that defines her within this quiet space. The feel of her tool, the batten, the heavy wooden bar used to press the weft into place, has become an extension of her body, an object that carries the muscle memory of thousands of repetitions. The stillness is almost complete now, broken only by the water's hush and very faintly the distant rustle of forest leaves in the cold breeze. The night air, with its penetrating freshness, invites reflection on perseverance, a quiet virtue essential to medieval life when each day asked for new labor simply to endure. Her devotion to weaving by such dim light isn't just work. It's an art that keeps the village sustained through trade, a vital link to the world beyond Grey Whisper. Her small oil lamp throws long, dancing shadows across the wattle and daub walls, making baskets of wool and rolls of linen look like silent, motionless creatures, guardians of her craft. It's an intimate view, almost a stolen glimpse of focused solitude, a moment of simple beauty. The faintly rancid yet familiar smell of burning oil is the perfume of her vigil, the olfactory marker of dedication. Curiously, many medieval peasants didn't labor without end. They observed numerous feast days and periods of required rest, a counterpoint to the modern stereotype of ceaseless toil. Those pauses were essential, allowing body and spirit to recover and gather strength for the crucial seasons of planting and harvest. The silver stream runs very near her home, and in the hush of night its sound takes on a hypnotic quality, a natural soundtrack that soothes the mind and fills the silence without disturbing it. The touch of her house's walls, built of earth and timber, speaks of rustic sturdiness, simple but effective against cold and nocturnal hazards. Seated on a wooden bench polished by years of use, Ilara inhales slowly. Her deep, even breathing becomes almost audible, a rhythm you can mirror to sink deeper into rest. Her hands, strong and deft, move the threads with practiced precision, an image of competence and purpose whose calm seems to radiate into the room. The little village of Ambrosia lies in nearly absolute sleep now, the air outside carrying a wet chill that promises dew and perhaps frost by dawn. The contrast between the cozy warmth inside Ilara's home and the cold beyond its walls heightens the sense of shelter and refuge, a nest of heat and light in the wide night. The faint wood smoke lingering in the air is a subtle reminder of the hearth, the source of warmth and the heart of domestic life, and the peasant diet, surprisingly varied, included grains and dairy, like butter and cheese, fruit and bacon in winter, painting a picture of subsistence beyond rye bread alone. That small glimpse into what sustains her gives depth to her simple life, a window into her physical reality. Ilara rises with a slow, measured motion, stretching muscles stiff from long hours, and the gentle settling of her body is the only human sound that breaks the outer quiet. She moves toward the hearth, where a fire has dwindled to embers, red coals under a blanket of ash, suggesting both lingering warmth and the promise of a new flame come morning. The cool iron poker in her hand is a hard, bracing touch amid all the soft fabrics around her, a contrast of textures that lightly awakens the senses. The bitter, familiar scent of char mixes with the sweeter fragrance of linen, filling the room with a comforting blend. Her gaze lifts to a small image of Saint Audran, a local saint, fixed to one of the ceiling beams, a small object of faith anchoring her spirit. In the flicker of lamplight, the saint's face seems to smile and then frown in quick succession, a little play of shadows that stirs the imagination. It's worth noting that, while peasants were considered the lowest rung of feudal society, they did hold meaningful rights and could bring cases to court. Lords were forbidden to beat them under penalty of heavy fines. That protection reminds us that medieval life was governed by a complex web of rules and obligations that offered a measure of dignity. She crosses to a small wall niche that serves as a cupboard and takes out a plain wooden bowl, the faint scent of oil from yesterday's supper still clinging to it. The sight of the empty bowl, soon to be filled with the barley and vegetable soup she prepared earlier, gently underscores the need for rest and nourishment, the final evening ritual before sleep. The soft scrape of her bare feet across the packed earth, the quiet shift of her weight, these small domestic sounds are intimate and unintrusive, harmonizing with the calm outside. The warmth she seeks in simple food is a deep, honest comfort, one of life's modest luxuries. Outside, the silver stream keeps murmuring, its steady voice slipping into the house without the need for glass panes to carry the world inward. The scent of hot soup, earthy and wholesome, becomes a fragrance of safety and sustenance, an invitation to settle the stomach and ease the mind. She sits again, this time nearer the hearth, and the ember's soft orange glow brushes her face, kindling a reflective light in her eyes. In this pause between work and sleep, her thoughts wander, not toward grand adventures, but along the patterns and textures of the fabrics she hopes to weave. She eats slowly, savouring the thick chew of barley and the quiet sweetness of vegetables, a small act of deep contentment. The warmth of the bowl in her hands is a physical comfort that reaches inward, anchoring her firmly in the present. The white filament of steam spiralling toward the dark rafters is an ethereal sight, an ephemeral banner of heat in the night's cold. Let that image of contentment and quiet be an invitation to your own pause, a moment to feel the serenity that comes when the body is fed and the mind at rest. The wind picks up, and the trees along the edge of grey whisper begin a low, gentle lament, vast, untamed nature speaking in a hush. The smell of resin and dried leaves rides the breeze, slipping through tiny cracks to mingle with the room's homely aromas, a wild perfume that contrasts with domestic comfort. Ilara finishes her meal and sets the empty bowl aside. The soft thud of wood meeting wood marks the end of her nightly ritual. She doesn't rush. She lives by the slow, measured tempo of her craft and of her age. She rises one last time. With careful fingers, she lowers the lamp's flame, deepening the room's penumbra, one final adjustment before bed. The woolen blanket she pulls around herself is coarse but warm, a rustic kindness against the chill. The sight of Ilara lying down on a straw-stuffed pallet layered with hides and cloth conjures a well-earned rest, a quiet surrender to the night. Now the silence is almost complete. Only the stream's soft pulse and the far-off breath of the forest remain. And in this image of repose, a medieval weaver in a 10th-century village, our invitation and setting come to rest, a tableau of tranquil, simple life. She snuffs the lamp at last, and the house falls into darkness, though her presence, her rhythm, remains vivid in your mind. Let Ambrosia's calm wrap around you, and let the smell of damp earth and the stream's steady murmur stand watch over your sleep. With the last light in Ilara's home extinguished, the village of Ambrosia surrenders completely to the rule of night, an ink-dark, velvety quiet, broken only by the pale glow of the moon drifting high above, an ancient silver disk reflected softly in the water of the silver stream. In this deep silence the senses sharpen. The murmur of the stream becomes the leading voice of the landscape, a constant and comforting sound that cradles the earth. The night air grows colder, asking for deeper retreat, and the image of dew-wet stones along the path evokes the chill and solid presence of the world outside. The smell of damp grass and hay, mixed with the resin of the forest, fills the air with the wild, untouched perfume of the night, a scent that calms and deepens relaxation. And in this near-perfect stillness, the first central element of our tale appears, not a person, nor an event, but an object of quiet, unexpected beauty, the chanting pendulum, a small bronze relic hanging beneath the eaves of the communal barn. Simple as it is, it trembles gently in the breeze, releasing a faint, drawn-out metallic tone, almost inaudible, a silent song joining the murmur of the stream. The sight of its green patina bronze, softly reflecting the moonlight with a muted glow, calls to mind ancientness and endurance, things made to last. The cool touch of the breeze that stirs it is the invisible force behind its hypnotic melody, a rhythm that matches the night's unhurried pace. The chanting pendulum is not a bell, but a thin, carefully balanced rod shaped like a stylized feather, created not for function, but for beauty and spirit. In the high Middle Ages, bronze casting for religious objects and fine utensils flourished in monastic workshops, where monks safeguarded metallurgical knowledge. This little piece is one of those legacies, a fragment of monastic art brought into the simplicity of peasant life. The faint scent of old metal, cold, earthy and aged, lingers around it, a fragrance of memory and time. Its purpose is to offer serenity to the village, Its sound, barely heard, is felt more than listened to, a vibration carried through the night air that settles gently into sleeping hearts. Imagine the touch of that vibration, a soft wave dispersing the smallest trace of unease. The sight of the pendulum swaying is hypnotic, slow, steady, almost like the breath of a body in deep sleep. The object stands at the crossroads of sacred and ordinary, born of monastic craftsmanship, yet resting on the simple wooden beams of a peasant barn. This mingling of the holy and the everyday was a constant theme in medieval life. The silence surrounding the pendulum magnifies its presence, turning it into the quiet guardian of Ambrosia's night. You can almost feel the metal's coldness from afar, a reminder of its strength and its resistance to weather and time. The smell of bronze mixed with dew and the sweet earthiness of stored hay creates a rustic blend of labor, history, and the natural world. And always, the silver stream keeps singing, a perfect accompaniment to the pendulum's slow dance and nearly silent hymn. Its soft mystery lies in its origin. No one in Ambrosia remembers who placed it there. It has simply always existed, a silent inheritance passed through generations. This absence of memory suggests a much older past, a gift from ages long gone that the village accepted without question. The dull, moonlit shimmer on its surface feels like a glimpse into history, a moment of natural contemplation born in darkness. Many medieval ritual objects survived long after their origins were forgotten, cherished not for explanation, but for their cultural and spiritual presence. The pendulum fits quietly into this tradition. The faint metal tone, repeating at long, irregular intervals, echoes the slow beat of an ancient heart, a rhythm that calls the mind to sleep and peace. Imagine the cool, uneven texture of aged bronze beneath your fingertips, each bump and ridge shaped by centuries of exposure. The emotional warmth of this quiet anchor inspires a sense of safety, a reminder that constancy and patience were treasures in a world that could often feel uncertain. The barn around it, smelling of dry grain, straw and dust, adds a layer of grounded reality to the pendulum's gentle mystique. Moonlight plays across it, creating waves of soft shadow, a nighttime performance visible only to the watchful traveler. The sight of the object suspended in the air, defying gravity, becomes a metaphor for the spirit resting lightly within the body. Its motion, nearly invisible, mirrors the flowing water of the stream, linking human craft and natural rhythm in a single, tranquil breath. Let this quiet image settle in your mind, turning observation into meditation. The stillness of the village is the perfect vessel for the pendulum's delicate voice, a sound that doesn't intrude, it simply offers itself, asking for patience and attentive ears. To hear it, one must quiet the noise inside, a practice of calm. The smell of night dew growing stronger carries the freshness of the coming dawn, a scent of renewal and cycle. The simple act of standing there, watching, listening, brings a profound peace, an immersion in the slow poetry of a 10th century night. The object's endurance, surviving generations, reminds us of the strength found in constancy. The chanting pendulum is the first gentle mystery that invites us onward, not a secret demanding to be solved, but a truth waiting to be contemplated. The sight of aged bronze, lined with grooves and imperfections, becomes a tactile map of time, each mark a chapter of silent existence. The breeze that sets it in motion is the touch of time itself on matter. And so, with the moon overhead and the silver stream below, the journey continues, slow, tranquil and full of quiet wonder. Tradução para inglês americano, mantendo o estilo calmo, fluido, natural e narrativo. The chanting pendulum, with its feather-shaped bronze form, is the visual anchor of stillness, An object tied to nature through the subtle movement of the breeze and to time through its green patina. The sight of its muted metal reflects the moonlight in a soft, unfocused glow, a velvet shimmer that blends gently into the night. The sound it releases is so faint it nearly dissolves into silence, a vibration that, if you pay close attention, feels as though it rises from the earth itself, a primordial voice. The coolness it evokes, cold metal against the imagined warmth of Ilara's fading hearth, is a quiet reminder of balance between elements. Bronze casting in the Middle Ages often carried spiritual meaning, and the feather shape may echo the pens of scribes or the wings of angels, suggesting a link to writing and devotion. This small detail of possible symbolism adds depth to the object's mystery, an enigma that asks for contemplation, not solution. The scent of old metal, cold and inert, mingles with the living perfume of dew and hay, creating an olfactory landscape of past and present, of matter and breath. The repetition of that delicate sound, the chant that gives it its name, is a rhythm that becomes almost hypnotic, a pattern that invites sleep and calm. Imagine it drifting slowly into your ears, soothing fast thoughts, encouraging your mind to swing with its gentle sway. Beneath the barn, the earth is cool and uneven, a solid foundation on which the entire scene rests, a steady reassurance. The barn itself, sturdy and simple, stands as a symbol of the village's livelihood, abundance and labor guarded by the silent bronze sentinel. The silver stream flows just a few meters away, amplifying the pendulum's tone through natural resonance, an acoustic gift shaped by moisture in the air and the presence of moving water. It's a soundscape that only the deepest quiet can reveal. The smell of fresh, cold water threads through the night air, a scent of purity and perpetual movement. Though medieval streams were often tainted by waste, they were still the heart of survival, shaping the placement and rhythm of every settlement, Ambrosia included. The serenity radiating from the chanting pendulum is contagious, soaking into the surroundings and into your own perception of the night. The faint shadow it casts, gliding across the barn's wooden wall, becomes a subtle, graceful dance, shapes moving lightly through the dark. The cold night air on the face is the touch of the Middle Ages itself, a sensory reminder that you are in another time and place. Let that difference settle gently inside you like a soft spark of curiosity. The beauty of this central object lies in its simplicity and endurance, a small bronze artifact that has watched generations live and fade silently. It stands in quiet contrast to Ilara's busy hands, a reminder of contemplative rest, waiting only after sleep. Its voice is its sound, a whisper of time and permanence. The scent of stored hay in the barn, warm and earthy, is the aroma of prosperity, harvest, labor and care, set against the cool hardness of bronze. The chanting pendulum is our resting point, the discreet bronze beacon gleaming in the dark. It represents continuity, the gentle way the past remains present without calling attention to itself. Feel the texture of the silence surrounding it, an invisible softness that embraces and protects. Let the mystery of its origin and the quiet beauty of its song lead you into deep calm, a final invitation to serenity before we step into the next part of our journey. The quiet of night, now deep into the early hours, allows contemplation of the chanting pendulum to become even more intimate and detailed, revealing nuances that daylight noise would hide. Under the moon's ghostly glow, the bronze surface shows faint engravings, letters and symbols worn by time, belonging perhaps to a forgotten alphabet, a variation of vulgar Latin or ancient runes. This small discovery evokes the depth of time, a silent script holding the history of its maker and the purpose it once served. The smell of cold, oxidized metal, earthy and aged, is the perfume of archaeology itself, a fragrance of centuries. The dampness in the air carries a cool, refreshing touch, a physical reminder of the night steadily passing. The pendulum's sound, so soft that it demands deliberate attention, acts like a tuning fork for serenity, a background whisper that soothes rather than stirs. Its rhythmic repetition, the long, metallic tick, resembles the slow counting of time's pulses, a cadence you can use to regulate your own breathing. In medieval life, many everyday objects, even the simplest ones, were adorned with small inscriptions or images of saints meant to invoke protection, a reflection of the era's deep religiosity. The small bronze feather is, therefore, more than decoration. It is a silent talisman of ancient faith. The weight of history the pendulum carries is not heavy, but grounding, a dense presence that comforts. The faded symbols encourage imagination, inviting stories of monastic artisans or scholarly travelers who might have brought the peace to Ambrosia. The light touch of the breeze, cool and gentle, is the invisible force that keeps it alive and moving. The barn's scent, a mix of grain and dry straw, offers a domestic contrast to the mystery of its origin, balancing the sacred and the ordinary. Up close, the pendulum is not smooth. Its surface is irregular, full of tiny grooves and dents, silent bruises of time. Under the moonlight, these imperfections become its biography. Each mark an event, each spot a season. The thermal quiet it emanates is its greatest virtue, a radiating calm that spreads through the sleeping village. The silver stream's constant sound becomes its accompaniment, a watery melody that blends perfectly with the slow, metallic sway. The pendulum hangs from a wrought iron chain, rusted and coarse, creating a visual and tactile contrast, the delicacy of the bronze feather against the ruggedness of iron. The imagined touch of cold, rough iron opposes the softened bronze, worn smooth by years. This contrast between materials, the peasant's iron and the craftsman's bronze, echoes the social complexity of the Middle Ages, where different classes depended on each other. The oxidized smell of the iron joins the bronze's scent, a double perfume of age and endurance. Looking even closer, you'd notice the bronze feather isn't symmetrical. One side is slightly thicker or heavier, giving its swing a charming irregularity. That imperfection is what makes it unique, a gentle reminder that neither nature nor human art strives for perfect symmetry. The slight imbalance changes the tone of its sound, tiny variations in pitch and duration that reward deep listening. Contemplating the pendulum in the silence of early morning is a kind of historical meditation. It is an object without a voice, yet it speaks volumes about perseverance, faith, and craft in the Middle Ages. The sight of its feather-like shape, now nearly swallowed by darkness, is the last glimpse of its physical presence. Let the serenity it radiates wrap gently around you, and let its slow, silent dance become your own calm, preparing your mind and body for the deepest rest. The rhythm of the chanting pendulum's swing is almost imperceptible now, more intention than movement, echoing the slow rotation of the earth itself. The object appears only as a faint blur of greenish silver beneath the eaves, a small point of light that draws the gaze until the eyes soften and rest. The stillness is so deep that even the gentle scrape of the rusted chain against the bronze stands out. A whisper of aged metal, an organic sound of matter that has endured centuries. The cold, moisture-thick air feels like chilled silk against the skin, a refreshing touch that clears the mind before sleep. The barn's scent, hay, dust, and the sharp aroma of rural labor grounds the pendulum's mystery in the everyday reality of the village. Though elegant and foreign in appearance, the bronze feather has been embraced by the community, woven into the fabric of their silent nights. Bronze production in Western Europe declined during the instability that followed the fall of the Roman Empire, but was revived in monastic workshops. supporting the idea that this pendulum might have been a gift from a distant abbey or a traveller of faith. Gazing at the piece under moonlight isn't a search for answers, but an exercise in serenity, a gentle acknowledgement that some forms of beauty deepen when they remain unexplained. Its feather shape recalls the power of writing. Even though most peasants were illiterate, it stands as a symbol of knowledge held safe somewhere beyond their reach. The faint sound of its swing, growing softer still, becomes a quiet farewell, a last melody before the complete silence that precedes dawn. The rough texture of the barn's wooden walls, framing the pendulum, speaks of peasant endurance, solidity honed by generations. The imagined warmth inside, protecting straw and stores from the cold, contrasts with the sharp night air that wraps around the pendulum outside. This duality of shelter and exposure becomes a subtle metaphor for medieval life. Let the slow rhythm of the stream, echoing the pendulum's near-still sway, guide your thoughts into deep quiet. The unresolved mystery of the chanting pendulum's origin is its greatest beauty, a story left open for each observer to finish privately, in silence. It reminds us that even the smallest medieval villages were connected to a wider world of art, faith, and travel. The sight of the bronze feather, its faded engravings worn by time, is the final image to hold from this moment of contemplation. Let yourself be carried by the sound of the silence the pendulum creates, a quiet filled only with the natural music of night, wind, water, and the distant murmur of the forest. The scent of night, fresh, earthy, cool, is the fragrance of rest. The contemplation of serenity is complete now, and your spirit is ready to drift gently toward the next part of our story, a new focus within the life of the village of Ambrosia. The deep quiet of early morning begins to loosen, giving way, slowly, gently, to the promise of a new day. There is no sudden change, only a soft shift in light and perception. The hour is uncertain, but the air grows colder, reaching the lowest point of the night, carrying a stronger scent of frozen earth and heavy dew. We leave behind the chanting pendulum and Ilara's sleeping home and turn toward a new presence, the quiet, deliberate arrival of scribe Alaric, a man in his early 40s, of Germanic origin, traveling alone. He is not from Ambrosia, but a wanderer seeking the village as a brief resting place before continuing south to the Abbey of Iron Mount. His arrival is announced by small sounds, the creak of the leather strap slung over his shoulder, the soft tap of his walking staff on the packed ground, subtle noises that stand out in the hush of dawn. Wrapped in a heavy grey wool cloak that makes him seem like a long shadow, Alaric moves with measured slowness, the pace of someone used to vast distances, though weariness clings to each step. The cold pushes him to pull the fabric closer to his neck. The smell of tanned leather and dried ink rising from his satchel is foreign to Ambrosia, an exotic fragrance of learning and the outside world that briefly rises above the rustic scents of hay and wood smoke. As a scribe, an uncommon profession in the 10th century, he carries written knowledge into lands ruled mostly by the spoken word. He is a quiet mediator between the world of books and the world of fields. He pauses beside the communal barn, and his eyes, habitually trained for the dimness of libraries, notice the chanting pendulum with professional curiosity. He reaches out, but stops short of touching the green patina bronze, a gesture of respect for age and craft. In the Middle Ages, scribes were essential to preserving knowledge, working in scriptoria to copy sacred and classical texts onto parchment, using pigments drawn from plants, minerals, and sometimes even gold, reminding us of the quiet weight of his trade. The soft sound of his breathing rises in the cold air, joining the steady murmur of the silver stream, forming a gentle rhythm of life in the village's sleep. Alaric is no noble, yet the parchment and ink he carries grant him a kind of intellectual authority that moves beyond social rank. His weapons are not swords, but quill and inkpot. His strength lies in the feel of parchment beneath his fingers and the precision of his writing. His face, weary but peaceful, the expression of one who lives for study and reflection, stands in quiet contrast to the sturdy, sleeping peasants around him. The faint scent of beeswax used to seal his documents clings to him, a small reminder of monasteries and official correspondence. The sensory imprint of his presence is subtle but profound. He is the embodiment of the written world, brushing against the rural world of Ambrosia. The cold of dawn feels sharper to a tired traveller, but he endures it with the memory of books and knowledge carried in his pack. The soft sound of his steps moving away from the barn, slower now, slightly uncertain, suggests he is searching for a place to rest before the village wakes. He is a messenger of change, though his influence is quiet, a whisper of news and ideas in a land ruled by tradition and memory. The simple earthen architecture of Ambrosia stands in stark contrast to the complex texts stored inside his leather satchel, a visual contrast between matter and thought. Guided by the instincts of a traveller and the need for shelter, scribe Alaric searches for the one structure in the village of Ambrosia that promises lingering warmth and a possible welcome. The Stone Moor Tavern, a heavy-roofed, rough-timbered building in the centre of the small square. The tavern, dark and silent, stands like a solid silhouette against a sky beginning to brighten with a pearly grey, the first visible hint of dawn. The sour smell of ale and the rich scent of smoked meat seep through the cracks in the door, the perfume of social life and human warmth, a comforting contrast to the cold of the forest and the open night. The rough, weighty wood of the door is Alaric's first physical contact with the structure that will offer him rest. He knocks with the flat of his hand, a muted, respectful sound that carries briefly through the stillness, the only human noise cutting through nature's whisper. That knock is his announcement, his entry into Ambrosia's quiet world. The wait is short. The door cracks open, revealing the broad-shouldered figure of Grimoald, the tavern-keeper, his beard unkempt and his eyes half-closed from interrupted sleep. Wrapped in a thick blanket, he's a picture of rough endurance against the cold dawn. Many medieval taverns served as inns for travellers, becoming small centres of communication and exchange. So, Alaric's choice of refuge is perfectly natural. The contrast between Alaric's soft, educated voice, asking for shelter in rustic Latin, and Grimoald's rough, sleepy Germanic dialect is a gentle collision of cultures and classes. The warm air from inside, stale but welcoming, spills out like a soft invitation. The smell of a slowly burning hearth grows stronger, weaving with cheap wine, sweat, and humanity, a shared fragrance of communal life. When Alaric steps over the threshold, it becomes a moment of transition, from the cold, silent outside to a warmer world, pulsing with memory and possibility. The heavy door shuts behind him with a thick wooden thud, a sound of safety and separation, sealing him away from the chill of dawn. The interior of the Stone Moor Tavern, lit only by embers in the hearth and a single oil lamp, glows with flickering shadows and warm orange light. The wooden floor, damp and polished by years of footsteps, greets his tired boots. His presence, a literate man among those who cannot read, is a new, quiet tension in Ambrosia's peace, a small ripple in a steady pond of rural life. He finds a silent corner, far from the tables scattered with empty mugs and scraps of food, and sinks onto a rough wooden bench, feeling the ache in his legs finally settle. The smell of his parchment and ink, A scent of learning and distant worlds blends with the tavern's thick odours, a meeting of two separate realities. Warmth settles over him, deep and grateful, and he lowers his hood, letting the dim firelight touch his calm, lined face. From his satchel, he unwraps a piece of hard bread, dry, dense, a traveller's simple meal, one more small human detail in a vast historical landscape. The sight of Alaric, an island of quiet thought inside a rugged tavern, is the close of our transition. He is safe. He has a place to rest. The soft crackle of the hearth, joining the distant murmur of the stream outside, becomes his new lullaby. The change of scene is complete, and Alaric's perspective now settles gently into the heart of the village, one that will soon awaken. Alaric, the scribe, finds a fragile rest in the darkest, quietest corner of the Stonemoor Tavern, using his leather satchel, filled with precious parchment, as an improvised pillow. He feels the soft yet firm touch of the leather beneath his neck. Our focus narrows to an intimate, revealing gesture, the way he handles his writing quill, a polished bone shaft tipped with fine metal, which he draws from a small oak case. Even exhausted, there is an instinctive need to check and feel the presence of his tools. The sight of the delicate quill against the rough setting of the tavern becomes a symbol of his mission and his scholarly world. The soft click of bone against metal is a tiny sound of precision and care. The quill carries the faint, acidic metallic scent of iron gall ink, the perfume of his work and identity, a smell Alaric wears like an emblem. He rubs his thumb along the tip, feeling the cold, smooth metal. The warmth from the dying hearth pushes back the chilled air of dawn, granting his mind enough comfort to settle and reflect. Iron gall ink, made from iron salts and tannins extracted from oak galls, was the standard ink of medieval scribes, prized for its permanence and deep colour, a detail that fills his craft with authenticity. The dim glow of embers and the oil lamp is enough for Alaric to notice a small stain of ink on his finger, a trace of yesterday's work. That tiny mark is a story in itself, a reminder of the text that occupied his thoughts. He wipes it absently on the edge of his cloak, a familiar gesture of someone who lives daily with ink and parchment. The wind slips through cracks in the tavern walls, its whisper serving as quiet accompaniment to his reflective pause. The bone and metal quill is more than a tool. It is a physical connection to the vast world of medieval knowledge, an object through which thoughts take form. Imagine the feel of the quill between his fingers, the balance of its weight, the precision of its nib. The responsibility he carries, the duty to preserve and transmit text, is a gentle but constant burden. The tavern's smoky scent and sour beer do not erase the subtle, persistent aroma of parchment and ink that clings to him. He exhales quietly, and that slow breath becomes a calming rhythm, his body awake but surrendering to rest. The sight of the quill returning to its oak case is the image of work paused, not finished. Oak, dense and enduring, was prized for valuable objects, a detail that speaks to the importance of the case and what it protects. Possessing these instruments gives Alaric a sense of belonging, a small emotional refuge in his solitary travels. The rough feel of the wooden bench beneath him is a reminder of the simple, rustic life surrounding him, a contrast to the delicacy of the manuscripts he carries. Alaric closes his eyes, yet the image of his quill and the words it writes remains vivid in his mind, a reflection of his focus and devotion. The scent of the hearth and the distant murmur of the stream outside combine into a quiet cocoon of peace, holding him safely in his small corner of the tavern. The silence inside the Stonemoor Tavern is almost a visual silence, where the only movement comes from the warm air rising off the hearth and the flickering glow of the oil lamp. With his eyes closed, Scribe Alaric lets his body rest, though the world of knowledge he carries remains fully awake within him. The sight of letters and symbols on parchment is his inner landscape, a tapestry of ancient texts and fresh transcriptions. His life is governed by the soft feel of animal skin parchment and the sharp, metallic scent of ink, elements that link him to a wide network of monastic and courtly learning. Alaric's sense of belonging is tied deeply to his quill, the object that turns his knowledge into written form and grants him a quiet status even in a rustic place like this tavern. The gentle rhythm of his steady breathing is the only human melody in the room, a slow and measured sound accompanying the dying crackle of the embers. He is a silent observer, trained to absorb his surroundings and record them with surgical precision, a habit that makes him less talkative and more attentive to sensory detail. Scribes often traveled from monastery to court, offering their services of copying and documentation, which explains Alaric's presence here in Ambrosia. The scent of wine, though he has not touched a drop, hangs in the air, a smell of fermentation and social gathering that feels foreign to his disciplined, ascetic routine. The contrast between the tavern's alcoholic perfume and the clean bite of his ink is a quiet collision of two worlds, the body and the spirit, pleasure and duty. The feel of the oak case that holds his quill is reassuring beneath his fingertips, a tactile guarantee that his most valuable tool is safe. His grey cloak blends so completely into the shadows that he seems almost invisible, a ghost of scholarship resting in a darkened corner, waiting for the village to wake. The remaining heat from the hearth wraps around him like a small pocket of comfort, a gift after the long chill of his night's journey. The cozy warmth invites deeper sleep, yet his scribe's mind remains lightly alert, registering the slow passage of time. The steady murmur of the silver stream filters in from outside, becoming his natural metronome, the quiet pulse marking each unhurried moment. This close focus on the quill and its case is really a focus on preservation. In a world where most history was spoken, writing was an act of permanence and power. With his tools, Alaric becomes a guardian of what will last, set against the brief, fragile lives of the peasants sleeping outside. The lamp's wavering flame casts one last soft light across him. This intimate look at his small gestures and instruments completes our meditation on his arrival, anchoring his intellectual presence inside this rustic space. The weary scribe's serenity becomes an invitation for you to find your own stillness, a necessary rest before the day begins. The subtle scent of ink from his case lingers in the quiet air, a promise that history will continue to be written, slowly, patiently, silently. Even though the Stonemoor Tavern rests in its deep, untouched silence, Alaric is not the only sleeper within its wooden walls. Our view widens gently to include the other occupants, a small group of travelling merchants gathered around the hearth, using their own cloaks as makeshift beds. They are Ambrosia's connection to the outside world, carriers of trade and news, and their sleeping bodies form a tactile map of exhaustion and long journeys. The heavy scent of leather, sweat and damp wool rises from them, a strong, earthy perfume that belongs to their trade. Their slow, rhythmic breathing, occasionally broken by a soft snore, fills the room and blends with the low murmur of the fading fire, together forming a quiet choir of human rest. Among them lies Bertram, a Frisian salt merchant whose large frame and dark clothing make him appear like a shapeless mound of fabric in the dim light. He is the bridge between rural life and the wide market, trading Ambrosia's surplus, Ilara's cloth, the village's hay, for what is essential, salt for preservation and forged metals. His leather satchel, smelling sharply of mineral and sea, is strapped tightly to him, a symbol of value and of profit-minded vigilance. The worn, grease-darkened wood beneath him is a reminder of the roughness of his life on the road. The warm air within the tavern is a luxury he rarely knows, a welcome contrast to nights spent under canvas or stars. The quiet, intellectual rest of Alaric, sleeping with his quill on his mind, stands in gentle contrast to the heavy physical rest of Bertram and his companions, who sleep with the weight of coins and cargo. One carries written history, the other carries the history of price and exchange. Salt, essential for preserving food, was a high-value commodity in the Middle Ages, often controlled or taxed, which made such merchants vital and their journeys dangerous. This detail explains Bertram's presence and connects his small story to the wider economy of the time. Bertram's soft snoring, guttural and steady, harmonizes with the slow crackle of the hearth, creating a lullaby of stability. The sight of the merchants huddled together evokes a sense of traveling community, a reminder that companionship was a safeguard against the dangers of the road. The faint smell of dry spices and road dust clings to their clothes and packs, a perfume from far places that brings a hint of mystery into this isolated village. The coarse wool blankets wrapped around them are their armor against the cold, simple, necessary comfort. The scribe in his shadowed corner and the merchants in their woolen heap represent the two currents that kept the medieval world in motion, the circulation of ideas and the circulation of goods. The tavern's remaining warmth is what unites them, the shared refuge where both journeys pause. This widened view shows that Ilara's quiet life and Ambrosia's small world depend as much on Alaric's quill, capable of recording a land title or trade agreement, as on Bertram's salt, which keeps food from spoiling in winter. Outside, the wind grows stronger and sharper, making the Stonemoor Tavern feel like a moored ship resisting the cold storm of dawn. Inside, the dark yet welcoming space becomes a symbol of human endurance and interdependence. A faint scent of tobacco clings to Bertram's clothes, a small luxury brought from the south, another sign of the world beyond. And so, Ambrosia's quiet is only an illusion, held together by a web of movement, commerce, and hidden connections that never quite sleep. The deep sleep of the merchants, an orchestra of snores and heavy breaths, is the echo of fatigue gathered along dangerous roads and in the hard labor of negotiation, a human symphony of exhaustion. The sight of their short weapons, left in a quiet pile near Bertram's bench, is a silent reminder of the very real dangers of medieval life: thieves, ambushes, and the absence of centralized law along long trade routes. The imagined touch of cold iron adds a subtle texture of threat to the tavern's warmth, a contrast between safety and risk. In the later Middle Ages, commercial roads grew so insecure that merchants often traveled in caravans and armed themselves against bandits, an everyday reality that deepens the truth of our scene. Alaric the scribe, resting in his corner, observes this heavy sleep with the detached calm of someone used to many sorts of places. His gaze, however, takes note of the merchant's thick satchels, sensing the mixed smell of minerals and spices layered beneath Bertram's salty cargo. His interest isn't in the value of their goods, but in the information they represent, where they have come from, where they are going, and what news they carry. His literate mind traces an invisible map of the medieval world, connecting Ambrosia, through these sleeping men, to distant cities and powerful abbeys. The smells of burned wood and tanned leather become the dominant scents inside, marking the meeting between the rural world and the travelling world within the Stonemoor Tavern. The lingering warmth is the bond that unites them, the reason all choose to remain here instead of facing the bitter cold outside. The murmuring stream outside continues its steady song, a constant flow that contrasts with the uneven rhythm of human breathing within, nature's continuity against the fragility of the body. By widening the scene to include Bertram and his fellow merchants, the story reminds us that Ilara and the pendulum are not isolated fragments. All these lives are part of a larger mechanism, connected by unseen threads of need and opportunity. The salt Bertram carries, ensuring Ambrosia's winter survival, and Alaric's parchment, guarding the legality of its land, are the village's two invisible pillars: preservation of the body, preservation of the future. Morning begins its slow approach. Pale light filters through the tavern's dusty cracks and shutters, shaping the once shadowed bodies into clearer forms. That light on the skin, still cold from night, is the first touch of dawn. Soon the stillness of the Stonemoor Tavern will break with waking voices and movement, but for now, this is the last shared breath of silence. Let the image of merchants and scribe resting together draw you into deeper calm, a final moment of peace before the day begins. The slow shift between night and dawn is captured in a quiet pause, where movement stops and light becomes the central presence. Light slipping into the Stonemoor Tavern and beginning to wake the scribe Alaric. A pale, cool beam, almost blue-grey, glides across the wooden walls, lighting up the dust suspended in the air and the dim shapes of sleeping merchants. It isn't harsh or sudden, but soft and gradual, a gentle touch that marks the beginning of a new cycle. The scent of night, cold earth and heavy dew, gives way to the faint sweetness of fresh morning air seeping in through the gaps, carrying the smell of damp wood. The fire, which burned all night, now offers the only sound inside, a warm, comforting crackle. Alaric opens his eyes, and his first act is simply to observe, a slow and thoughtful inspection shaped by habit and profession. He doesn't move. He allows dawn to settle fully into the room, feeling the cold that still rises from the packed earth floor despite the fire's warmth. Through a small, fogged-over window, he can glimpse the village, still untouched, still serene. The wattle and daub houses, the communal barn and the canticle pendulum hanging beneath its eave appear through a low, silver mist. Morning fog like this was common across medieval valleys, often tied to superstition and legend, adding an ethereal veil to Ambrosia's awakening. He watches without judgment the heavy sleep of the merchants. He notices how Bertram the saltseller has wrapped a rough woolen cloth, perhaps woven by Ilara, beneath his wrist as a pillow. It is the gentle observation of someone accustomed to reading lives quietly, how each class, each trade, finds its own small comforts amid hardship. Outside, the Silverbrook's murmur grows clearer as the night withdraws, becoming the soft soundtrack of the morning. The smell of the fire blends with the faint sweetness of the hard bread he saved from the evening, a scent of safety and sustenance. This contemplative pause is our own stillness, a slowing of the narrative to honor the act of simply existing and witnessing. Alaric feels the thickness of his wool cloak, that protective barrier of warmth against a harsh world. The tavern's simple objects, dark wooden tables, rough benches, clay mugs, take on a quiet beauty beneath the soft dawn light. They are silent testaments to shared lives and shared survival. It is the calm before movement, the moment of grace before a village wakes. He breathes deeply, and the fresh morning air, smoke, damp soil, and cold sweetness fills his lungs, waking him gently from his light sleep. The far-off call of a rooster becomes the anchor of time, the first announcement that rural life is stirring again. Still, he doesn't rise. He holds on to the rest, savoring each second of quiet. His contemplation is not only sight, but smell, sound, touch, a full record written directly into the mind. It is his silent prayer, his quiet gratitude for shelter and warmth. Alaric remains in his unhurried stillness, a living contrast to the awakening that is about to unfold. Daylight strengthens slowly, shifting now to a brighter, gentler grey, and the tavern's details sharpen into focus. The cracks in the wooden beams, the soot stains that trail across the ceiling. He watches the quiet rhythm of nature returning, the sound of life resuming without announcement or haste. The cool air carries a refreshing touch, breaking the heavy warmth of the night. In many medieval communities, a watchman would call out the hour or announce dawn, which makes Ambrosia's silent, gradual awakening feel like its own quiet, cultural ritual. Alaric senses the scent of fresh wood being placed on the fire by Grimoaldo, the tavern keeper who moves with the slow, heavy steps of someone summoned from sleep by duty. The soft crackle of new logs and the smell of fresh smoke replace the faint odor of cold ash, a gentle shift that marks the arrival of morning. The flames brighten, the first warm colors of the day, orange and yellow breaking through the dimness. This simple act of feeding the fire is a small daily ceremony, the rekindling of the tavern's heart and warmth. The wooden bench beneath Alaric reminds him that his rest is ending, and his scribe's mind begins to arrange the next steps of his journey toward the Abbey of Iron Mount. Still, he cherishes this last pause, this delicate space between the world of night and the world of work and travel. Outside, the Silver Brook murmurs its final lullaby for him, a constant voice that offers a feeling of belonging and quiet continuity. The moment of contemplation closes with the image of Alaric, a single point of knowledge and reflection, absorbing the calm of dawn. The serenity of this breath of time, where nothing demands urgency, is the final invitation to rest. The smell of fresh wood and the soft sound of the fire wrap the scene in warmth, preparing us for the next movement in the narrative, a shift in perspective. The quiet of the Stonemoor Tavern breaks softly, stirred by the slow awakening of the merchants. But our perspective shifts toward the village of Ambrosia itself, and to a new figure, Leonie, a healer and wicker basket weaver, 70 years old, of Latin heritage, respected and quietly mysterious within the community. She does not live near the center, but in a small hut of stone and earth at the edge of the ash-grey forest, a place that smells richly of dried herbs, wet soil, and medicinal smoke. Her home, wrapped in the morning mist rising from the stream, looks like a refuge of wisdom and secluded life. Leonie wakes with the first birdsong of the forest, a soft, varied chorus that serves as her natural clock. The feel of her straw mattress, covered by a heavy quilt of linen and wool scraps, is a rustic comfort she has come to treasure. Her world is shaped by the cycle of nature, healing, growing, beginning again, so different from Alaric's written world. She rises slowly, and the sound of her steps across the packed earth floor is the gentle noise of gravel and soil shifting beneath her. Medieval healers, often called wise women or herb wives, played a crucial role in community health, using knowledge of medicinal plants, practice usually tolerated by both the church and formal medicine, which explains Leonie's importance and respect. The smell of chamomile and sage tea, warming in an iron pot over a small fire, fills her hut with a fragrance of earth and gentle healing. The fire, just a modest flame, casts a warm, intimate glow that reflects in her pale blue eyes. She carries the oral memory of remedies and cures, knowledge passed from one generation to the next, and she has become the keeper of this fragile wisdom. Her story is that of a woman who gave up the comfort of living among others in order to serve them better from the forest's edge, a quiet sacrifice. The soft sound of wicker being woven, which she begins working on even before the sun is fully risen, becomes the rhythm of her day, a repetitive, gentle noise that is its own form of meditation. The feel of the willow in her aged fingers, fresh and flexible, is her connection to the world of materials, and she turns it into strong baskets for harvest and trade. The warmth of the small fire is essential, a pocket of comfort against the damp, misty air outside. From Leonie's perspective, we step away from travelers and trade and into the grounded wisdom of the village, the resilience of rural life in harmony with the forest. The sight of her hands, wrinkled yet sure, weaving intricate patterns into the wicker, is a picture of skill and patience, a quiet beauty born of everyday work. The smell of dried herbs hanging from the beams of her hut fills the space with the scent of a rustic apothecary, a perfume of healing and gentle mystery. The smell of fresh willow, slightly bitter and damp, fills Leonie's hut, blending with the stronger medicinal scents of rue and rosemary hanging in bundled clusters overhead. The touch of her calloused, nimble fingers working the wicker with a precision only decades of practice can produce is her physical bond to the land and her craft. Outside, the morning mist slowly dissolves as daylight advances, giving her little home an air of sacred seclusion, a point of stillness at the edge of a waking forest. The soft rasp of wicker weaving is her morning prayer, a quiet and steady rhythm that settles the mind. With her knowledge of healing herbs, Leonie embodies the empirical science of the Middle Ages, the practical wisdom that kept a village alive. She stands in contrast to Alaric's written knowledge. She guards the oral, lived kind. And her small, private story began before dawn, a sudden crack of a branch outside her hut, sharp enough to make her rise, but it turned out to be only a hungry badger passing through. That flicker of night worry, now gone, is a reminder of the delicate balance of life on the forest's edge. The warmth that gathers near the fire is a comfort to her bones and fuel for her work, a simple, deep relief. Nearby sits a clay jar filled with poppy seeds and small vials of essential oils, a quiet display of resources and wisdom. The gentle creak and snap of wicker bending in her hands is the only interruption of silence, the rhythm of creation. Medieval healers, like Leonie, often worked within the belief of the four humours, adjusting herbs and infusions to balance blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, a detail that roots her healing in the medical ideas of her age. The smell of sage tea, which she now sips in small, careful swallows, is her ritual of waking, sharp, earthy, and cleansing. The warm clay cup is a comfort in her palms, soothing body and spirit alike. From Leonie's vantage, we step away from the stirrings of Alaric in the tavern and return to the deep rhythm of the natural world. She is in harmony with the forest, weaving usefulness into the shape of baskets. Birdsong grows louder, and sunlight begins to break through the mist, laying a soft golden glow across the straw roof of her hut. The sight of dawn touching the healer's home is an invitation to reflect on resilience, usefulness, and quiet endurance. Leonie's life is a testament to the silent strength of tradition and skilled hands. In the village of Ambrosia, the first great sound of morning is the bell of St. Audran's chapel. Not the night angelus, but the firm, steady ringing that marks prime and the beginning of the day's work. The metallic vibration shatters the last traces of silence and carries across the wattle and daub houses a collective summons to wakefulness and religious order. The air, now less heavy with dampness and sharper with morning cold, touches the skin with a dry, energizing chill. The village changes shape with the light. Rough wooden doors and shutters begin to swing open, releasing the scent of hearth smoke and something far more inviting, the warm fragrance of fresh rye bread, a smell of comfort and survival. It mixes with the fading sweetness of dew, forming the perfume of life returning. Movement is slow but unbroken. Heavy footsteps on packed earth, the creak of rusted hinges, and the bleating of sheep released toward pasture. Bells from chapels or from communal towers, were essential in medieval life, marking the canonical hours and shaping every cycle of work and prayer. In Ambrosia, this bell is the heartbeat of the morning. Smell becomes the sharpest sense now. Alongside bread and smoke comes the pungent sting of freshly turned manure, the perfume of work and renewal. Villagers step out in wool and linen dyed in earthy tones, their bodies sturdy and bent from years of labor. Low voices rise in the local dialect, a soft morning murmur layered over the clatter of tools and the noise of livestock. The feel and sound of iron and wooden implements being lifted and dragged is the music of labor beginning. As true daylight settles, the colors of the village emerge. The dark green of ash-grey forest, the warm browns of earthen homes, and the pale shimmer of the silver brook. From somewhere near the tree line comes the rhythmic thud of an axe, wood being split, houses being built, fuel being gathered. The crisp smell of moss and raw timber joins the village's growing tapestry of scents. Shadows still cling to corners, the air there cool and damp, but sunlight begins to warm the thatched rooftops, promising a milder day. This sensory swell is full immersion into a waking village, a brief, ordered chaos as stillness becomes motion. Columns of smoke rising slowly from chimneys create the morning's first gentle pillars against the sky. When the chapel bell finally stops, its echo lingers for a heartbeat, before blending into the steady hum of rural life, a background sound so familiar it soothes simply by existing. In the stone-moorn tavern, scribe Alaric feels the swelling of sounds and smells as the true end of his night's truce. He hears the heavy stir of the merchants rising, the creak of their makeshift beds, and the floorboards groaning beneath their weight, a chorus of human awakening. The smell of fresh bread drifting in more boldly through the door Grimold cracks open is irresistible, stirring his hunger and reminding him of ordinary needs. The merchants move like unfolding shadows, fastening belts, checking pouches and handling short blades, signs that their journeys will soon resume. In her cabin at the forest's edge, the healer Leonie senses the same awakening, though in a different shape. To her, the chapel bell and the growing noise of the village mean that soon someone will knock at her door, asking for salves or teas. The scent of her drying herbs grows clearer in the warming air, blending with the fading mist that curls away from her roof. The feel of the cool earth beneath her bare feet is her grounding, her link to the healing force of the natural world. These amplified morning senses reveal that the village, rustic as it seems, is a living, layered organism with its own rhythms and hierarchies. A curious medieval habit was the widespread drinking of low-alcohol beer or watered wine, even among children, since running water, though used for daily life, was often unsafe. The faint smell of drink lingering in the tavern and in many homes is a small reminder of hygiene and survival in that era, a detail that sharply contrasts with our own. In kitchens across Ambrosia, the sounds of breakfast rise, clay pots being moved, wooden spoons tapping, small fires crackling to life. The rhythm of nourishment blends with the rhythm of labor. Then sunlight finally breaks through the last veil of mist, bathing Ambrosia in a warm gold. The light softens the roughness of the houses, turning wattle and earth into rustic beauty. Alaric feels the first touch of warmth through the tavern window, a gentle invitation back to the road. The smell of wood smoke lifts into the clear sky in steady silver columns, the perfume of work and community. The silver brook, once a lullaby, becomes now the quiet backdrop of daily effort, a constant thread of life. This sensory moment ends with a single feeling: belonging. Morning gives everyone a purpose. Alaric, Bertram and Leonie are awake now, ready to take their places, moved by the steady march of time and necessity. The village breathes in unison, an organism of scents, sounds and motion, growing louder, warmer and more alive beneath the morning sun. In the central square of Ambrosia, the hum of voices grows denser, a mingling of dialects and rustic slang, the true record of peasant life. The clatter of wooden clogs against packed earth forms an uneven percussion, a rhythm of hurried steps and sleepy hesitations. The smell of fresh rye bread, now rising from the communal oven, is the centerpiece of the morning, a warm, yeasty perfume that draws the villagers together to share their daily bread. Clouds of steam drifting from the oven form a gentle vision of heat and sustenance, the visual heart of a community feeding itself. Scribe Alaric, having left the tavern and preparing for his journey, walks through the square and feels the flood of sensations, the contrast between the stillness of parchment and the pulse of peasant life. The touch of morning sun on his face carries quiet strength, though he remains slightly apart, an observer within the commotion. Children's laughter and sharp cries ring through the air, the newest notes in the day's growing symphony, a sound of innocence and of future layered over labor. The smell of fresh milk, carried in wooden pails from the cottages to the square, softens the stronger aromas with its pale sweetness. Women gather around the stone well, their buckets clanging lightly against the rim as the rope creaks, a scene of shared work and simple conversation. The cool, moss-covered stone beneath their hands recalls the chill of underground water and the endurance of time. The smell of clean water, mineral, pure, is a brief relief amid the heavier odors of rural life. Communal wells and fountains were, in fact, the social centers of many medieval villages, places of exchange, news and rumor, making this space the sensory and social core of Ambrosia. Back in her cabin, healer Leonie still hears the bell of Prime echoing faintly in her mind, but the most present sound is the whisper of wind brushing through the herbs that hang from her rafters, a dry, rustling song that is hers alone. The medicinal scent of her infusions, steeping near the small fire, is her olfactory shield against the village's smoke, a fragrance of healing and focus. The sight of chamomile and sage bundles swaying gently above her is one of quiet patience and humble beauty, wisdom made visible through plants. The smell of hot iron drifts from the blacksmith Gerald's forge at the village edge, a metallic, pungent scent marking the work of craft and survival. The hammer's clang against the anvil rings out with force and precision, cutting through the agricultural sounds around it. Black smoke rises in thick spirals toward the clear sky, a striking contrast between toil and purity. Even from a distance, the radiant heat of the forge can be felt, a living pulse of energy and strength. Then come the animals. The lowing of cattle, the bleating of sheep, the grunts of pigs released to pasture, all blend into an animal chorus that completes the human soundscape. The pungent smell of barns and manure fills the air, unmistakable yet vital to life. Herds large and small move toward open fields guided by young shepherds, a picture of interdependence between man and nature. In medieval times, livestock often grazed in shared meadows or even forests under the watch of communal herders, a glimpse into the economic order that kept villages alive. Before mounting his horse to join the merchants, Alaric pauses to make a brief note on his parchment. The faint rasp of quill on vellum, a whisper of precision, is almost lost in the noise of the square. The smooth, cool texture of the page beneath his hand is his last link to the world of knowledge before returning to the road. The smell of his iron gall ink, sharp and metallic, lingers, a final trace of intellect amid the labor of life. His still, focused gesture stands as a moment of quiet poetry in a whirlwind of motion. The scent of human effort, sweat, soil and sun grows stronger as work quickens under the rising heat. The sound of hoes striking earth forms a steady, rhythmic thump, the heartbeat of agriculture. The sight of bent backs in the fields, tilling and planting, is the image of toil and renewal, the cycle of life beginning again. The feel of the turned soil, cool and damp in calloused hands, speaks of fertility and promise. By mid-morning, Ambrosia is a living organism, a swirl of sound, scent and movement. The sun's touch grows warmer, the air alive with effort and hope. The stillness of night has yielded to the vibration of day, and the traveller, awake and alert, absorbs the full sensory chorus of this forgotten age. Ambrosia shifts with a slow, deliberate change in tone and temperature. The village moves from the damp chill of dawn into the gentle warmth of morning, from stillness into the controlled bustle of daily work. The silver stream, which has been a constant whisper through the night, now seems louder, not because the water has changed, but because life around it has awakened. Wooden buckets knock against the banks, and the sound of women washing clothes in the cold current adds a bright splash to the village's morning chorus. The smell of plant-based soap and wet linen mingles with the other scents of the day, a quiet perfume of cleanliness and domestic routine spreading through the air. Scribe Alaric, now fully awake after a simple breakfast shared with Grimoald the innkeeper, feels this slow, emotional shift inside himself. Weariness has faded into a steady focus, a quiet reserve of energy for the road ahead. Under the strong sunlight, the village shows its true colors, warm browns, dusty yellows, and the pale gold of thatched roofs, so different from the grey world of before dawn. The leather strap of his satchel rests firmly on his shoulder, a familiar weight that reminds him of his duty, his craft, and the words he must carry forward. This gradual change reveals itself through gentle repetition of sight and sound. The Canticum pendulum, the strange object that seemed so mysterious in the dark, now stands fully visible in daylight. The old greenish bronze shines faintly under the sun, ancient but no longer veiled in uncertainty. Its movement is nearly silent, barely noticeable over the noise of labor. It is a thing of night made more profound when the world is quiet. In the square, Bertram and the other merchants prepare for departure. Horses stamp the ground, saddles are tightened, and metal buckles clink in sharp little bursts. The smell of horse sweat, leather and iron settles into the air, an unmistakable scent of travel and distance. Carts are loaded, bundles tied tight, and the sight of the small caravan forming is a reminder that Ambrosia is not entirely alone. It is connected by salt, wool, tools, news and risk to the larger world beyond the fields. A small truth about medieval life. Most villagers owned no horses at all, oxen pulled the ploughs, and travel was often done on foot. Horses belonged to nobles, clergy or wealthy traders. The presence of so many of them in one place, alongside Alaric's own mount, marks a clear line of status in this humble square. Alaric adjusts his satchel and steps forward at a patient pace, ready to join the merchants. Safety lies in company, and the road to the Abbey of Iron Mounts will be long. The village continues to bustle, but for the scribe and the caravan, the day is already shifting once again, from warmth and noise to open fields, dust and uncertain miles ahead. The sun is now high enough to sweep away the last traces of mist, and the village of Ambrosia rests under a gentle warmth that marks the day's slow shift. The light is bright, but never harsh, more like the soft shine of late spring, perfectly matched to the steady rhythm of work. Grimoald, the innkeeper, hammers a loose board back into place on his tavern door. The sound is steady and practical, blending easily with the footsteps, the voices, and the restless animals. The scent of burnt wood has faded, replaced by the warmer smell of sun-baked earth and the sharp metallic odor of the merchant's horses, a fragrance of travel and departure. Alaric, the scribe, watches Ilara step out of her cottage with a bundle of pale linen tucked beneath her arm. She walks toward the communal barn, where she will likely trade her work with the merchant Bertram. The sight of the linen, clean, light and finely woven, stands out against the darker wool of the villagers' clothing and against the greenish bronze of the canticum pendulum, now glinting under the sun. Seeing Ilara again, this time in full daylight with her finished cloth, quietly reinforces her diligence and her importance to the village economy. A warm breeze slides through the square, a soft touch of the changing season. The emotional temperature shifts as well. The merchants prepare to leave, and their goodbyes are simple. Nods of the head, the quick clasp of a hand, the dry click of coins being counted and tucked into leather pouches. Words are few. In the 10th century, agreements were short, practical, and often silent. Most trade was based on direct exchange, but silver coins, especially the denier, were necessary for costly goods like salt or spices. That small detail gives weight to the quiet transaction happening in the square. When Bertram's caravan begins to move, the village loosens its breath. Hooves strike the earth, wheels rumble forward, and metal buckles chime against saddles. Little by little, the sound fades, swallowed by the edge of the cinder-song forest. Alaric rides with them, carrying the calm he found in Ambrosia, a quiet traveller slipping back into the larger world. For a moment, a cloud of dust hangs above the road. The scent of horses, leather, and faint spices lingers in the air, then disappears. The villagers return to their tasks, and Ambrosia settles once more into its controlled rhythm. Tools striking earth, animals braying, voices mixing with the constant whisper of the silver stream. The canticum pendulum shines softly beneath the sun, and the village becomes a warm, steady picture of rural life, an enduring stillness holding firm beneath the bright sky. With the caravan gone and the scribe Alaric on the road once more, the village of Ambrosia settles back into its steady rhythm. But the afternoon sun, slowly sinking toward the horizon, brings with it a gentle mood of retreat. The sounds shift, animals are herded back into their pens, tools fall silent in the fields, and voices soften. The warm scent of dry earth mixes with the first wisps of chimney smoke as hearth fires are lit again for supper. It's the smell of a day closing, the promise of rest, of warmth, of home. The air grows drier and softer, brushing the skin with the quiet touch of evening. Our focus returns to Ilara, the weaver, now back inside her cottage, but not to weave. She is preparing for the end of the day, organizing her skeins of thread and cleaning her tools with the same care she gives to every piece she creates. Her hands move slowly and thoughtfully, touching each linen and wool spool with reverence. The soft whisper of thread being rolled away and tucked into place becomes a soothing rhythm, a sound of order, of closure. Ilara's quiet preparations are an invitation for us too, to settle and breathe. Outside, the canticum pendulum stretches a long, distorted shadow along the barn wall, bronze glowing warmly beneath the orange light of dusk, as if lit from within. Its presence is unchanged, but its mystery softens in the evening's gentler colors. The scent of freshly cut grass drifts through the air, cool and green, balancing the warmth of the hearth. Night approaches slowly. Movements fade, voices die down. Only the essential sounds remain. The silver stream murmuring in the distance, and the steady crackle of the fire. The sky deepens into soft tones of peach and violet, the last bold colors before night folds over the village. Ilara sits on her wooden bench, and the solid weight beneath her reminds her body that the day is done. At the close of medieval work, tools and materials were often cleaned and arranged with small blessings or whispered thanks. Gestures meant to protect the craft and ensure good work in the morning. Ilara's quiet ritual belongs to this tradition, a blend of skill and faith. The silence of twilight wraps gently around her cottage. She rubs a square of linen between her fingers to clear it of stray fibers, the quiet, rasping sound becoming her final task of the day. The smell of clean cloth rises softly, fresh and pale, mixing with the first hint of night's dew. She lights a small oil lamp, just long enough to finish her tasks. Its weak flame flickers against the walls, confirming that darkness has finally taken hold. As she thinks of the pattern she sold to Bertram, each thread planned, woven and paid for, she feels a quiet, complete satisfaction. The sun is now high enough to sweep away the last traces of mist, and the village of Ambrosia rests under a gentle warmth that marks the day's slow shift. The light is bright, but never harsh, more like the soft shine of late spring, perfectly matched to the steady rhythm of work. Grimoald, the innkeeper, hammers a loose board back into place on his tavern door. The sound is steady and practical, blending easily with the footsteps, the voices, and the restless animals. The scent of burnt wood has faded, replaced by the warmer smell of sun-baked earth and the sharp, metallic odor of the merchant's horses, a fragrance of travel and departure. Alaric, the scribe, watches Ilara step out of her cottage with a bundle of pale linen tucked beneath her arm. She walks toward the communal barn, where she will likely trade her work with the merchant Bertram. The sight of the linen, clean, light and finely woven, stands out against the darker wool of the villagers' clothing, and against the greenish bronze of the Canticum pendulum, now glinting under the sun. Seeing Ilara again, this time in full daylight with her finished cloth, quietly reinforces her diligence and her importance to the village economy. A warm breeze slides through the square, a soft touch of the changing season. The emotional temperature shifts as well. The merchants prepare to leave, and their goodbyes are simple: nods of the head, the quick clasp of a hand, the dry click of coins being counted and tucked into leather pouches. Words are few. In the 10th century, agreements were short, practical, and often silent. Most trade was based on direct exchange, but silver coins, especially the denier, were necessary for costly goods like salt or spices. That small detail gives weight to the quiet transaction happening in the square. When Bertram's caravan begins to move, the village loosens its breath. Hooves strike the earth, wheels rumble forward, and metal buckles chime against saddles. Little by little the sound fades, swallowed by the edge of the cinder-song forest. Alaric rides with them, carrying the calm he found in Ambrosia, a quiet traveller slipping back into the larger world. For a moment, a cloud of dust hangs above the road. The scent of horses, leather, and faint spices lingers in the air, then disappears. The villagers return to their tasks, and Ambrosia settles once more into its controlled rhythm, tools striking earth, animals braying, voices mixing with the constant whisper of the silver stream. The Canticum pendulum shines softly beneath the sun, and the village becomes a warm, steady picture of rural life, an enduring stillness holding firm beneath the bright sky. With the caravan gone, and the scribe Alaric on the road once more, the village of Ambrosia settles back into its steady rhythm. But the afternoon sun, slowly sinking toward the horizon, brings with it a gentle mood of retreat. The sounds shift, animals are herded back into their pens, tools fall silent in the fields, and voices soften. The warm scent of dry earth mixes with the first wisps of chimney smoke as hearth fires are lit again for supper. It's the smell of a day closing, the promise of rest, of warmth, of home. The air grows drier and softer, brushing the skin with the quiet touch of evening. Our focus returns to Ilara, the weaver, now back inside her cottage, but not to weave. She is preparing for the end of the day, organizing her skeins of thread and cleaning her tools with the same care she gives to every piece she creates. Her hands move slowly and thoughtfully, touching each linen and wool spool with reverence. The soft whisper of thread being rolled away and tucked into place becomes a soothing rhythm, a sound of order, of closure. Ilara's quiet preparations are an invitation for us, too, to settle and breathe. Outside, the Canticum pendulum stretches a long, distorted shadow along the barn wall, bronze glowing warmly beneath the orange light of dusk, as if lit from within. Its presence is unchanged, but its mystery softens in the evening's gentler colors. The scent of freshly cut grass drifts through the air, cool and green, balancing the warmth of the hearth. Night approaches slowly. Movements fade. Voices die down. Only the essential sounds remain, the silver stream murmuring in the distance and the steady crackle of the fire. The sky deepens into soft tones of peach and violet, the last bold colors before night folds over the village. Ilara sits on her wooden bench, and the solid weight beneath her reminds her body that the day is done. At the close of medieval work, tools and materials were often cleaned and arranged with small blessings or whispered thanks, gestures meant to protect the craft and ensure good work in the morning. Ilara's quiet ritual belongs to this tradition, a blend of skill and faith. The silence of twilight wraps gently around her cottage. She rubs a square of linen between her fingers to clear it of stray fibers. The quiet, rasping sound becoming her final task of the day. The smell of clean cloth rises softly, fresh and pale, mixing with the first hint of night's dew. She lights a small oil lamp, just long enough to finish her tasks. Its weak flame flickers against the walls, confirming that darkness has finally taken hold. As she thinks of the pattern she sold to Bertram, each thread planned, woven, and paid for, she feels a quiet, complete satisfaction. When the night chill deepens, she moves closer to the hearth. The dry heat from the embers warms her skin and bones, chasing away the dampness outside. She sets aside a bundle of wood for the morning, an act of quiet foresight. The neat stacks of wool and linen in the corner look almost beautiful in their stillness, raw material waiting patiently for tomorrow's hands. Her last glance is toward the loom, now covered with cloth, silent and still. The fabric she pulls over it feels coarse but protective, a gentle touch of care. Outside, the silver stream keeps its soft, endless song. It will sing her to sleep as it always does. Ilara lies down on her bed of straw and hides. The small sound of her settling into rest is a peaceful surrender, a body letting go of its weight. The smell of wood smoke, earth, and night is the final breath she takes before closing her eyes. Wrapped in calm expectation, she welcomes the promise of another simple, meaningful day in the village of Ambrosia. With the sun reaching its highest point in the sky, the light becomes sharp and overwhelming, turning the village of Ambrosia into a painting of vivid colors and short, hard shadows, the peak of daylight. The birds that once filled the morning with song have quieted, replaced by the constant drone of insects and the lazy, muffled murmur of the silver stream under the heat. The scent of dry earth and dust, kicked up by feet and wagon wheels, becomes the fragrance of midday, a warm, sun-baked perfume that spreads through the entire village. The scribe Alaric, now far from Ambrosia, feels the slow shift in temperature. The heavy, dry heat of noon pressing against his wool cloak, he seeks the shade of roadside trees, welcoming even a thin sliver of coolness. The landscape stretches beneath the sun in rough beauty, gold and deep green, bright and unforgiving. The slow turning of Bertram's wagon wheels on the dirt road becomes a steady, hypnotic sound, the rhythm of travel, unbroken and predictable. Back in her cottage, Ilara feels the heat too, but the thick clay walls and reed thatch roof keep the interior pleasantly cool, a refuge against the noon sun. She returns to her loom, and the rhythmic clack-clack of the wood becomes her afternoon music. The warm air amplifies the smell of linen and natural dyes, a sweet, fibrous scent that fills her workspace. Under her fingers, the cloth grows thread by thread, a patient act of creation. The canticum pendulum makes another subtle return. Beneath the midday sun, it does not glow with mystery, but casts a small, sharp shadow, solid, still, unbothered. Its voice is silent, drowned by the noise of labor. It waits for night to reclaim its serenity. One can almost imagine the bronze warm to the touch, a reminder of its weight and endurance. In her stone cottage near the edge of the woods, Leonie welcomes the heat for a different reason. Herbs hanging overhead dry faster now, releasing an even stronger medicinal perfume. Sharp, green and healing, the wicker in her hands grows firmer under the sun, and the soft creak of weaving becomes her slow, patient rhythm. The warmth on dried herbs and wood feels therapeutic, connecting her body to the arc of the sun and the pulse of her craft. At midday, the village pauses. Work slows. People retreat to shade. The sounds of tools fade and are replaced by quiet conversation and the soft clatter of bowls. The smell of vegetable stew and grain porridge drifts through doorways, warm, familiar, comforting. Families gather under trees or in the cool of their homes. The touch of cold wood beneath their hands gives relief from the heat. The Ferrero, Gerald, breaks the stillness first. His hammer returns to the anvil, clang, 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 a metallic heartbeat that dominates the afternoon. The smell of hot iron and burning charcoal rises thick in the warm air. His arm lifts and falls beneath the sun, strength, endurance, labor made visible. The heat, radiating from the forge, becomes its own weather, a pocket of fiery intensity inside the quiet village. Midday in Ambrosia becomes its own form of meditation. Heat slows every gesture. Movements repeat, sounds stretch and soften. Under the blazing sky, the village settles into the patient rhythm of work, a rhythm that calms simply because it never changes. And there it rests, Ambrosia flooded with intense light, every sound, smell and texture amplified. The last full image before the long descent toward evening. Her last glance is toward the loom, now covered with cloth, silent and still. The fabric she pulls over it feels coarse but protective, a gentle touch of care. Outside, the silver stream keeps its soft, endless song. It will sing her to sleep, as it always does. Ilara lies down on her bed of straw and hides. The small sound of her settling into rest is a peaceful surrender, a body letting go of its weight. The smell of wood smoke, earth and night is the final breath she takes before closing her eyes. Wrapped in calm expectation, she welcomes the promise of another simple, meaningful day in the village of Ambrosia. With the sun reaching its highest point in the sky, the light becomes sharp and overwhelming, turning the village of Ambrosia into a painting of vivid colors and short, hard shadows, the peak of daylight. The birds that once filled the morning with song have quieted, replaced by the constant drone of insects and the lazy, muffled murmur of the silver stream under the heat. The scent of dry earth and dust, kicked up by feet and wagon wheels, becomes the fragrance of midday, a warm, sun-baked perfume that spreads through the entire village. The scribe Alaric, now far from Ambrosia, feels the slow shift in temperature. The heavy, dry heat of noon pressing against his wool cloak, he seeks the shade of roadside trees, welcoming even a thin sliver of coolness. The landscape stretches beneath the sun in rough beauty, gold and deep green, bright and unforgiving. The slow turning of Bertram's wagon wheels on the dirt road becomes a steady, hypnotic sound, the rhythm of travel, unbroken and predictable. Back in her cottage, Ilara feels the heat too, but the thick clay walls and reed thatch roof keep the interior pleasantly cool, a refuge against the noon sun. She returns to her loom, and the rhythmic clack-clack of the wood becomes her afternoon music. The warm air amplifies the smell of linen and natural dyes, a sweet, fibrous scent that fills her workspace. Under her fingers, the cloth grows thread by thread, a patient act of creation. The canticum pendulum makes another subtle return. Beneath the midday sun, it does not glow with mystery, but casts a small, sharp shadow, solid, still, unbothered. Its voice is silent, drowned by the noise of labor. It waits for night to reclaim its serenity. One can almost imagine the bronze warm to the touch, a reminder of its weight and endurance. In her stone cottage near the edge of the woods, Leonie welcomes the heat for a different reason. Herbs hanging overhead dry faster now, releasing an even stronger medicinal perfume. Sharp, green and healing, the wicker in her hands grows firmer under the sun, and the soft creak of weaving becomes her slow, patient rhythm. The warmth on dried herbs and wood feels therapeutic, connecting her body to the arc of the sun and the pulse of her craft. At midday, the village pauses. Work slows. People retreat to shade. The sounds of tools fade and are replaced by quiet conversation and the soft clatter of bowls. The smell of vegetable stew and grain porridge drifts through doorways, warm, familiar, comforting. Families gather under trees or in the cool of their homes. The touch of cold wood beneath their hands gives relief from the heat. The Ferrero Gerald breaks the stillness first. His hammer returns to the anvil. Clang, 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 a metallic heartbeat that dominates the afternoon. The smell of hot iron and burning charcoal rises thick in the warm air. His arm lifts and falls beneath the sun. Strength, endurance, labor made visible. The heat radiating from the forge becomes its own weather, a pocket of fiery intensity inside the quiet village. Midday in Ambrosia becomes its own form of meditation. Heat slows every gesture, movements repeat, sounds stretch and soften. Under the blazing sky, the village settles into the patient rhythm of work, a rhythm that calms simply because it never changes. And there it rests, Ambrosia, flooded with intense light, every sound, smell and texture amplified. The last full image before the long descent toward evening. The weathered canticum pendulum beneath the eaves of the communal barn in the village of Ambrosia becomes our point of return. The moon, now high and serene, bathes its green-tinged bronze in a pale, cold glow. The pendulum swings with a movement so faint it feels imagined, releasing a soft metallic whisper that only the night knows how to amplify. Peace settles completely, an ending that wraps both the village and the traveler in quiet. The gentle murmur of the silver stream is the only sound that remains, its flowing water echoing the slow, unbroken passage of time, binding the traveler's long road to this calm, restful present. The village appears exactly as it did before. Straw-thatched roofs and dark clay walls resting under the moonlight. Yet now it carries the weight of every story revealed within it. Ilara's diligence, Leonie's wisdom, Alaric's knowledge, Bertram's trade. The cool night air touches your skin with a soft, refreshing chill, the final sensation of this medieval world, a physical reminder that you've been here. The subtle return of the pendulum and the stream is a quiet certainty that even as centuries pass, some things endure. The need for order, for work and for rest. The sound of silence itself, filled only by water and distant wind, becomes a perfect lullaby for a tired mind. Think of the small lamp in Elara's home, its flame extinguished, yet leaving behind the warmth of her work and her intention. Darkness isn't emptiness. It is a vessel where sleep grows deep and dreams begin. The forest of Grey Chant is now one dark, still shape, a vast mystery, familiar and harmless under the safety of rest. The faint scent of hearth smoke drifting across the village promises warmth and another sunrise. This quiet night in the 10th century is a gentle reflection between past and present. The wish for peace, for slow rhythm and silence, belongs to every era. Let the weight of your own thoughts dissolve into the soft rush of the stream, turning worry into simple flow. The feel of your own bed becomes Elara's straw-filled mattress, humble, warm, and safe. The canticum pendulum sways one last time, a small gesture of farewell. It is the final note of stillness, a message of peace breathed from ancient bronze. May the smell of damp earth and the voice of the silver stream stand guard over your night. The silence is now dense and complete, settling over the village of Ambrosia like silent winter snow, and the canticum pendulum is almost invisible, present only through its gentle, ghost-like sound. The night becomes a soft, poetic metaphor, a great dark cloak laid over everything, protective and calm. The stream, once a quiet melody, is now the steady heartbeat of time itself. The scent of dew-covered grass and the mineral fragrance of cold water are the last perfumes of the waking world, guiding you slowly toward the realm of dreams. A feeling of lightness unfolds, as if the mind has finally released every heavy thought, replacing worry with the simple, powerful images of this forgotten age. The vision of Leonie's home at the edge of the woods carries the quiet wisdom of nature, an ancient promise of healing and renewal you can bring with you into sleep. The comfort of your own bed becomes the final touch that anchors all this serenity within you. The image of Alaric, the scribe, continuing his journey, and Bertram, the merchant, travelling on, is a gentle contrast that closes our story. They have departed, but left a soft trail of movement and knowledge behind, enriching the village's stillness. Their farewell reminds us that life, no matter the century, is made of cycles, work and rest, movement and stillness, writing and silence. Let this acceptance become yours too, a deep, effortless relaxation. And so, the village of Ambrosia, in the 10th century, with its clay walls and its canticum pendulum, becomes more than a setting. It becomes a state of mind, a place where slowness is the rule and silence is a language. The soft breath of wind passing over a thatched roof is the final whisper of this medieval world. The quiet you feel now is the inheritance of an age that understood the value of time and observation. Your spirit, a traveler through history, sinks gently into rest, protected by the sound of water and the scent of earth. The stories of Elara, Leonie, Alaric, and Bertram weave together inside your fading thoughts, forming a dream of serenity and old forgotten worlds. The canticum pendulum sways one last time, a silent farewell. Your breath becomes slow and deep, matching the rhythm of the night around you. Until tomorrow, traveler, I'll be waiting for you right here between history and dreams. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and sleep well.